Good day, Garvin colleagues, and welcome to this very quick but efficient presentation on how we get our students to be more engaged with the lessons that we create and how we as educators can create lesson plans and present lessons that are effective, that can get our students to analyze, to be more investigative, and to be expert problem solvers, not just in their own classrooms, but also give them a global lens. So, I'm going to be talking about how I do that with my kindergarten class as we discuss social studies and the arts. So, this is the standard that I am going to be discussing today. And let me move this out the way so that you can see it a little better. And we're going to investigate the importance of services provided by the local governments. Basically, we're talking about rules, and why rules are so important to a classroom, why rules are so important at home, in our communities. And again, we're trying to get them to have that global lens. So, we're going to use two forms of tools that educators can use in order to create higher order thinking questions, to pull those skills out, analyzing, investigating, problem solving for our students. And that's the depth of knowledge overview chart. And that was designed by N.L. Webb, as well as the Bloom's taxonomy pyramid. And you are very well acquainted with these two tools and how we can use these tools in order to create the questioning. So the first level is the recall and reproduction. We want our students first and foremost to be able to recall the information that we present in a lesson. Number two, the second level would be to skills and concepts. Use that information that they can recall and be able to build on that information. Again, we want them to analyze, we want them to investigate, we want them to research, we want them to problem solve. Level three in the DOK chart is strategic thinking. Now, we want them to be able to look outside of the box in their world and be able to be able to use the information that we are talking about, which are rules, and we need to design questioning that is going to be able to pull the reasoning and the planning in a sequential order in their problem solving skill. And the fourth level in the chart is extended thinking. Again, we're trying to extend their thinking to outside the box to a global view. So, what kind of questionings would you use in each of these levels? Well, the higher order thinking questionings for level one would be something as simple as, again, you're trying to recall. So, you're trying to ask them, what is a rule? Can you name a rule that we follow in school? Something as simple as that. And here are some other examples in order to do that. Level two, we're getting a little bit more rigor with it, and we're asking questions on why do we use the rules. So now you know what rules are, but now why do we use them? And what happens when we don't have rules? So now you're starting to get them to think on a more higher level, higher order level, and not just on a foundational rudimentary level. Level three, again, now you want to hone questions that will get them to start thinking strategically. What would happen if there were no rules at school? Oh my goodness. What would happen? We know what would happen, but we want to know if our students know what will happen. How can we explain, let's say in art, we put the elements of art into it, and again, differentiating the lessons where you might have students that you might have students that, they learn differently, and you might get more of a better data as to whether they understand the lesson by having them do an art project. So you might want to have them draw what it might look like if there were no rules in a classroom, and then explain that to their classmate. So that brings a more collaborative learning environment for them. And the last level is level 4, questions. So again, we're continually as educators extending the thinking of our students. And we're now going to the global. How do rules in our school compare to rules in other cultures? So we will bring that in our lesson plans, and we will talk about maybe the different rules in China, maybe the different rules in Haiti. And we will also, as educators, bring cultures that are reflected in our classroom that will increase the engagement of our lessons. And that's what we're all aiming for, isn't that right? Student engagement brings very interesting and very uh, fulfilling and effective lessons. So here are some different types of less assessments that we can use in order to get our data and collect our data, to making sure that our students are understanding and getting the content. Think, pair, share with sketching. So again, you're adding the art element to it. Again, I mentioned before that you might have them draw what it would look like if they had their town or their country. What did that look like when it had no rules? Maybe it looked like a war scene. Maybe it looked like chaos to them, where a whole bunch of people were together, and maybe they're not in a line or in a formation. So they'll be able to sketch that out, color it, and they can explain it to their partner. And that, again, it encourages collaboration, it encourages reasoning and creative expression. Now, on the summative level, once the unit is over, then you're able to have maybe a classroom project where it will be graded as a summative assessment, and maybe they'll do a rule book mural project. You'll have them create a page in that rule book, and they will do, illustrate it again, bringing that art component in there. And then once the book is done, then it will be graded as a uh, end of chapter or end of unit test grade. Incorporating digital tools for inquiry and critical thinking is critical and is crucial for educators. Just standing there talking to the classroom in a lecture way is very boring, not very engaging. But when you introduce tools like Padlet, Seesaw, Kahoot, Lumio, these are interactive tools that you can use. Teachers can create them based on the state standards, and they will also develop reports for us to use in order to see if we need to continue on with the lesson or reteach that lesson. So, in summation, what are the takeaways? The takeaways are the various questioning strategies used when we present our lessons. We can use these tools. The DOK, we can use Bloom's taxonomy, and I will be sending this presentation out, as well as the DOK chart and the Bloom's taxonomy chart. So you can use that and put that in your teacher's binder to help you, so you can pull resources from. Um, these tools will help our students and help us create higher order thinking questions, so that we know exactly what our children are retaining, and we're developing them and into scholars that are able to think outside the box, that are able to problem solve and use the information Again, the takeaways are in continuation that these tools will help us as educators to develop higher order thinking questions so that we know just where our scholars stand academically. We'll be able to use the data that's generated from the different technologies. Like I said, Kahoot, Lumio, they all have reporting elements to them. So then that way you can pull that information. You'll be able to see who's understanding, who you might need to pull out to a small group and do more intensive, more individual, more differentiated instruction. And also the digital tools will also act as an aid to bring more engagement into our classroom, and that's what we want. We don't want something that is a lecture where that we're just teaching and talking and they're not having any type of discourse. We want them to have that social studies and arts discourse. We want them to be able to ask questions, be inquisitive, to be investigative. We want them to analyze and evaluate the information that we present. And that leads to a more well-rounded scholar. So I encourage you to include these strategies in your classroom. So do I have any questions? If not, again, like I mentioned earlier, I will be sending this presentation out through the email along with the depth of knowledge chart and the Bloom's taxonomy chart. So then that way you can use those as resources. You have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I appreciate you all. Let's have a great time and great success in teaching and learning.